I don't know what it's doing, but like it says we're live. So hi guys, welcome to Association Chat for this week. As most of you who might know me can tell, I am not Kiki L'Italien. Kiki is currently finishing up an interview on blockchain on stage here at AMS Fest, which is why you have me. And if you've been to AMS Fest before, then you know how awesome it is. This is my first time, and I am having a wonderful time. I have learned so much, and I've got a lot to take back to my association, and a lot of work to do. So I am so excited. It's been awesome. We had a great investors and mergers and acquisitions panel yesterday. Shelley Alcorn this morning. Tom Morrison yesterday morning kicking us off on the Uberization. Just been so many. Kiki actually did a session on the GDPR that I missed, so I'm excited to learn more about that. And so if you've never been to an AMS Fest before, I highly suggest you attend. And if you have, well then I'm sorry you're not here right now because I'm missing you. But Kiki should be coming out to take over for us. But in the meantime, I know that we have Tim Hopkins here with us, Bill Bruce, and Ray Van Hilst, who he appears to be frozen on my screen, so I'm really not quite sure what's going on. But hopefully we'll get that sorted out. And they're going to be talking about a tech takeover. I have not seen the synopsis of this yet, so I'm really not quite sure exactly what's going on. But I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say when I listen to the podcast later. What are you guys up to? What have you guys been doing?
Same old, same old.
Yeah.
Another day, another dollar.
Pushing pixels and innovating.
So, Bill, I don't even know if I've met either Bill or Tim in person before. I know Ray. We've served together, but I don't think I've met either of you guys before in person.
No, I don't think we have. But, the things here are going pretty well. Last night we got our board to approve a fairly ambitious digital transformation project. So I realized I spent a lot of time preparing for that. I realized that the hard part is now actually going to be doing it. So.
Awesome. Yeah, that's always the hard part of anything. It's like, oh, we can prepare, and then, oh, wait, now we have to actually do the work.
Bill,
Bill,
what were the...
And I understand you said you started a new job recently?
Is this me? Sorry.
Yes, you, Bill. Sorry.
Sorry. In June I started as the executive director of the American College of Occupational and Environmental Medicine.
Okay.
So that was after a few years as the chief technology officer at the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
All right, awesome.
I've been in and around the community for years, but.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. And Tim, who are you? What do you do?
I'm with the International Association of Pirates.
Okay, awesome.
Technology, software, GIS, analytics, all that.
Awesome.
And
Very
Tim,
cool.
you recently got promoted.
Well,
right?
I currently work for an association management company. I started with them back in January, and my client is the Customer Experience Professionals Association. And while I had done tech, tech for me was kind of a fun thing. I never considered it a job for me. And so at my last association, I was in charge of a lot of the technology and had a good time with that, but I was in charge of it, so I did all the implementations. Well, I've learned a lot coming on board with a new organization, a new association who has implemented an AMS before I got there, just learning so much about how important strategy is when it comes to using technology. Yeah, you're still frozen, Ray. So it's been it's been a good move for me to do this and learn this and do exactly what you guys are talking about. Kind of trying to do a makeover of what we've got going on, understanding the system, understanding what the issues and hiccups are, and then planning for, okay, how do we salvage this relationship, and how do we salvage this our AMS experience and make it a good one for everyone. So that I would say for me, AMS Fest, that's been one of my biggest takeaways. Is it may not be, your AMS may not be broken. So what are some things that you can do to go back and salvage that? What are some ways that we can strategically look at it? What are the issues that we're having? What do you want to do? And then working within that to see how we can bring things back together. So.
It's interesting, what you were just saying, and you reflect on how many times in the past 17 years I've heard the word salvage in a discussion around the relationship with an association management system vendor. And it's surprising how frequently that is sort of the foundation of a discussion that you have with those vendors. I'm optimistic. I think a lot of vendors can really turn it around. There's a lot of vendors right now that really some more than others. One of the things that we're doing in our organization is the project. First and foremost, your association management is something that inhibits flexibility and inhibits business. So that's the first thing that we need to do. And it's kind of sad because before I was exposed to an inside view of this particular, I would have guessed that we would be more flexible and more nimble. There she is.
All right, guys. Well, my time is up. Kiki is here. Have a great time. He's trying to get back in.
All right. Hi, guys. Is this exciting yet? Oh, my gosh. AMS Fest. Hello, hello.
Hello.
All right. So
you know everything about blockchain now, right?
Everything. I can tell you everything you need to know. So what have I missed? Oh, my gosh. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And catch me up. So did we do the intro? Have we done the sponsorship message?
We have not. We did a quick sort of intro. Ray is reconnecting. I think he rebooted.
All right.
There he is.
Fantastic. See, it's all coming together. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. Association chat is here. Oh, I love it. Okay, so I had a great conversation, I have to say, with Ian Kahn. And if anything, what it illuminates is there is a lot more to understand about blockchain and the way that different industries, the way that all of the association industry can look at it, the way our technology providers are going to look at it. But yes, it's evolving, and one thing at a time. And with that, let's talk about it, guys. Welcome to Association Chat, your weekly online discussion for the association community, where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with the topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, Kiki L'Italien. I'm reporting to you live from AMS Fest. I want to give a shout out to our wonderful sponsor, Fontiva, the AMS for Innovation, for their ongoing support of Association Chat and the community here. Listen, they have been supporting us for all of 2017, and we really, really do appreciate it. So if you're on Crowdcast, I want to suggest, or even if you're watching on Facebook or anything, I want you to suggest to check out Fontiva. They've got a lovely blog for the association industry that you can check out. And so, without further ado, for this episode of Association Chat, I have the good fortune to be coming to you with 3 experts who are going to talk to us about research that has been done by ASAE, talking about the tech industry for associations, right? Something like that. We are going to be talking about 3 bright lights in the industry for this tech takeover. We're talking with Tim Hopkins, Bill Bruce, and Ray Van Hilst. Hi, guys.
Howdy.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so glad you're here. And so all of you are on the ASA Tech Council. Is that correct?
Oh, it's just kind of, this is very casual. That's 30 minutes.
It is.
Kind of?
Well, I've been carrying guilt around this year because I, with the job change, have had far less time than I'd hoped for that. But I do have 2 really active years on the council before this.
Well, you showed up today, and the other 2 are vouching for you, so it's good enough for me. That's fantastic. You've made it to my blockchain. So I want to ask you guys an opening question based on some of this research that you've reviewed, that you've been discussing, and that I think that a lot of people in the industry would be interested in. I mean, certainly there's this feeling that that technology in the association space is not as advanced as it should be, right? That we're not as innovative as we should be. So we want to explore this tech maturity question, why we doubt that we're as innovative as we could be, and what's holding us back. So I want to actually ask Tim first. I'm going to pick on Tim to tell us about the study. What did ASA study to find out about tech maturity at associations? Give us a little background there.
All right, so I guess it was a year, 2 years ago, they put together a study that we reached out to both the IT professionals and surveyed members of those IT professionals at associations, and did a whole bunch of things to break down sort of where the industry is. And it came to sort of a breakdown of maturity levels at associations. And the one piece that kind of I hung on to is that only 9% of those associations surveyed said they were truly innovative. Just learning how to use technology. The majority of associations were in the middle somewhere, and like 60 out of 100 marginally effective at using technology to move their association forward. And so I kind of clung to the 9% at the very top of those people who are truly innovative, and tried to figure out and discuss with colleagues on the Tech Council and then the 2 guys here today of saying, what's holding us back? What do we need to do to try to get that number up? And are there common themes across associations? So I think that's kind of where we're at, and that's what brought us here today.
I think that it's so, it just highlights why it's so important that this research is done, because, you know, it's stuff that we talk about when we get together at conferences, but it's not anything that we can usually put numbers around and real metrics around. And so I want to ask you, so I want to pick on you, Bill, if we go to looking at why associations aren't considered to be on the upper echelon of tech maturity, you know, why is that? Why is it that we think that for-profits have just got the big gain on everything? Maura and Reggie Henry. I mean, come on, you know, you guys.
You were joking about Ferris Bueller earlier, and there it is. You know, okay. So why are associations perceived to be behind? Obviously, it's a very complicated answer, but there are a couple of things that I think are impactful for this. Most associations tend to be risk averse to the point of paranoia or even paralysis. And that tends to make them want to feel like whatever they do on an innovation front needs to be perfect first time out. Associations have not generally adopted this fail fast and fail forward mentality yet that we've been hearing a lot about the last couple of years. And I think another thing that gets in the way is that everybody wants a really positive technology or digital experience with their organization. But most organizations that I've had experience with they struggle with understanding that technology is something more than a cost center line item, that it's a strategic investment, and that it really doesn't pay out quickly. You know, you throw a lot of money and resources into technology, and as long as you've done that well, you can expect to have that enable the business in the future. But a lot of boards, particularly, and CEOs, struggle to understand the sort of the time delay of investment to relationship, to output, and so that sort of holds them back. There's this idea that we also have to be perfect. I can't release this website knowing that it has things that need to be improved. Let's go and let's fix the thing that needs to be improved, and then we'll test it again. And then 3 people find something new, and it's like, oh, okay, great, throw it back into development. And it's sort of the worst of Agile and the worst of Waterfall sort of mixed together. Means you never get anything done, and you really can't get anything out the door. And a lot of associations, I think, fall into that trap of it has to be perfect and it has to give value immediately.
Is that what you guys do? You agree with that assessment? Because I feel like that even in the association realm, we've been talking about lean startup methodology. We've been talking about ways to make sort of not completely safe, but like safer small bets, small tests along the way. Do you still feel like associations are more risk averse, and that, or do you see that it's changing a little bit? Are we leaning more in the right direction, where we can take a few more chances?
I think so.
And that can go to any of you, like whoever feel like Tim, Ray, I haven't heard from you yet. What do you think?
So I think some are, and I'm going to use Bill's example of a website launch as a good example, because not hearing me?
Tim.
No? No?
You're good. I got you.
I can hear you, Ray.
You can hear me? Okay. I'll use Bill's example of a website launch, where you're managing the technology, but also the expectations. That's a big line item that you've put out to your stakeholders and your board. And you said, we're going to launch this website.
Sorry, I'm not hearing anything on this side. I don't know why.
No, my browser's not liking me today. My computer's not liking me. Bill, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah,
okay.
me too.
All right, then I'll keep going.
You guys go for it. I don't know what's
Wonderful.
up with the platform, but if you can respond, and then I'll just keep going,
Scott says he hears me. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Tori. I see you guys.
They are our beta
Ann.
testers, and we're failing in real life. Okay, so your website is a big thing that you've put out there, and you have all these stakeholders are invested in it, and you make a big deal about it. And it's like I talk with clients all the time, like, we're going to launch before our annual meeting, your most visible thing that you could ever do. And then, but you have no room for error at that point, as opposed to launch at a quiet time, go ahead and make your mistakes and then let it go. And I think that's that Agile Lean of having a culture where you can make those, have those smaller moments where you can fail, you can try something, you can get it wrong, you can iterate, and you go from there. And I think, Bill, to your point about everyone is a great example for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. A great contribution.
I think the other thing that happens within that I was making a comment on, and I've seen this in discovery sessions, Kiki, and as part of the culture, is too many staff within the association don't consider themselves technologists.
Mm-hmm.
They say, "Oh, I don't use technology." Okay, do you have a computer? And it's like, how many times have any of us felt bad opening up a website and looking at code with someone? We're like, now we've suddenly gone over their heads. Yeah. That shouldn't be. Everyone is using technology in their day-to-day life. Everyone in the staff is a technologist. So with that comes a culture of embracing the technology and making those changes. And I was actually reading an interesting article about that the other day, where they were like, don't be embarrassed about knowing how to look at code or write code or fix things. We shouldn't feel bad.
Well, and I think so. In addition to that, I think getting back to what Kiki was asking, which was, why is it? And when the community's been talking about this making it safe to fail, embracing failure. We did the Fail Fest last year, and we talked earlier about doing Fail Fest again this year. And I think those are fantastic, and those should definitely happen, and we need to keep embracing that. The problem is that most CEOs and most executive directors and almost all boards aren't hearing those messages yet. They aren't filtering out to where culture and strategy is. And so, the things that I think are limiting to technologists in associations, and why this is 9% innovators, it's because there are constraints that are outside of the realm of technology. And within any association, it's not the CIO that decides where the association's dollars are really going to be going from an investment standpoint. And so if you don't have the people that are making and influencing those decisions on board with whatever the digital initiative is and whatever sort of innovation directive you have, then you're going to be, the people like us who want to see that happen are going to be hamstrung. We're corralled within the realm of influence that we're allowed. And that's sometimes is structural, it's sometimes cultural, it's sometimes both.
So what I think is interesting about this, I love, and I'm sorry that I can't hear Ray. That's the thing is, I don't know what that's going to do for our podcast later. I'm hoping that the audio input is just on this side and it's not for the entire broadcast. But thanks for summarizing so eloquently and putting that into place for me. And also, yes, one of the good things is that we do have this FailFest shameless plug that Tim just posted. And all of the tech team is doing such a great job with that, the Tech Council from ASAE. And so if you go to the tech conference, you need to check out the FailFest. It's going to be phenomenal. But, and I am speaking at it. So, and I know failure, guys. We're experiencing it now. So I am a master at that. Huge failure right here. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to talk about, though, is yes, we're talking about the fact that, yeah, is it okay to fail? Well, maybe if we are being held accountable to different groups of people and it's a different situation than what's, so a for-profit might be looking at, it feels like a different game. What about the CIO-CEO relationship? When Tim and I started talking about this conversation, we started talking about the fact that that relationship in particular is oftentimes a very, I don't want to say tense, but it's a complicated relationship because depending on the different types of responsibilities that each has, the different types of sort of the knowledge base that the CEO and CIO have, they have to make decisions together as a team, right? And so can you talk to me a little bit about that? I want to hear a little bit about not just what the research shows, but what you've gleaned also from your experience.
Yes, so I think this is very important, and also depending on the size of your association and the history of the association itself, some may not even have a CIO at all. They'll have an IT manager, they'll have a director of technology, they'll have that person who's assigned with the IT relationship with their vendors, and whatever that person is, or if there isn't that role, there should be that person at the association. That's what I'm looking at first. And so my experience, I've had a CEO who's not great at technology, and I have one that's on the front edge and a first gets every new toy every time one comes out. And so the relationship I've held with the both of them through my career has been incredibly important. But one part of it is you have to be on the technology side. You need to be proactive on having those conversations early and often, but not just having the conversation about the technology itself. You always need to be tied to the strategic goals of the association and toss out your IT speak as much as you can to really talk about how the association works and how to achieve the goals of the association. If you use that language, your relationship with that CEO or your executive director is going to be so smooth. You'll get to the point where we have a strategic direction meeting every 3 years from our board of directors and members of our staff, and technology is on the table with everything else, and that is one of the topics of conversation among all of the, after overall goals are laid out and we're having a discussion. Technology is on the plate because we've had those conversations. So it's really, really.
Well, and I think that role, whether it is IT director or CIO, that person in that role, I feel like that has transformed so much, especially in the past 10 years. And, it's definitely something that's gone from, I don't think that you can be in that position and just be focused on the technology without having a mind or having the skills developed around just business management, governance, understanding the direction that the entire organization is supposed to move in. Because as technology evolves, it seems like it's more and more of, I don't know, to be in that position is a very complicated position to be in, and one where you have to consistently and continuously be learning at a rapid pace. And so with that in mind, with an eye toward innovation for associations, especially in technology, what do you see happening in the future? I mean, do you think that some of those relationships are going to, do you see the roles changing? Do you think that the expectations on the CIO or IT director, that those are going to shift, they're going to break apart? How do you see that role either changing or staying the same?
I think that they're already changing for organizations that are trying to keep pace, organizations that are looking a little bit forward, and they have to. One of the things that I have been asked a lot of the past few months, and what kinds of things do CEOs need to keep in mind, and sort of how do I reflect on that? And one of the things that I do is I always turn that around as, the CIO or CTO really needs to be thinking more like the CEO and the CFO and less like the IT director. And I use those titles very intentionally because I think that there's sort of a vocational lock-in to these different titles. People assume that the role has to be championed in a particular function. And if you're an IT director today in an organization that doesn't have a bunch of chiefs, then you're essentially the CIO or the CTO already. But if you do have a layer of chiefs above you, then you need to be thinking at that level. You need to not be thinking at the level that you currently are. And if you're the CIO, your success in that role as CIO or CTO is in your ability to enable the CEO to clearly make good decisions around the strategic value of digital investment. And you can only really do that in one of two situations. One, if the CEO just inherently trusts you, which doesn't happen as often as we would hope. Or two, you're able to frame the value proposition in a way that the CEO is able to then take it to the board, the executive committee, and the finance committee and sell it for dollars. Those are really, I think, the way that those things change. Is I have, for about 6-7 years, thought of the IT executive as not an IT executive. It's a business executive that happens to be in charge of the digital investment portion of the business. And the way that you define digital investment, I think, is what's now changing. You see some organizations introducing this concept of a chief digital strategy officer, where you combine technology and content and a little bit of member experience into this overall digital experience paradigm that is really interesting. And unless folks that are running those portions of the business are able to suddenly understand the limits and value of technology, it's going to be the guys and the ladies in technology understanding those other areas of the business that they've been supported that are positioned to really gain as this shift happens. And it'll be interesting to see if that takes on. It's more of a medium and larger association issue. Certainly, my organization is not big enough to do it, but some of the large ones, I do see that moving that way. So, really, I think it's essential that the CEO and the CIO or CTO have a tremendously powerful codependent and co-supporting relationship.
Yeah, I I have to agree based on what we see in the way that organizations are run, the way that decisions are made, understanding, marrying the technology and the direction that any organization in any industry is moving in. I don't see how you can make decisions without understanding the implications on how technology impacts that. And I want to actually bring in Mike in our chat column here. He mentions, in general, doesn't the cost of non-conformance tend to be more expensive than the cost of conformance? Do association CEOs not adhere to that way of thinking? Do they understand the cost of technical debt? Just curious. So I always like to bring in the questions that we get live, because that's one of the benefits of participating live. So any thoughts on that, you guys? And if Ray says something, which I hope he does, please summarize for me. I'm still not getting his voice in.
Pause for Ray. Go ahead.
Pause for Ray.
All right.
Well, I'm going to come back to that question. I think to Bill's point first, by the way, I think a lot of that pressure is coming from boards. I'm seeing more pressure from boards looking to their executive directors and their leadership saying, we're seeing technical shifts and we're expecting you to become more technologically innovative. And that's an interesting thing when the number that's in the report that says associations that they don't feel that their members are tech savvy, so therefore we don't need to be as tech savvy. You know, that's not true. All your members are using tech savvy. So the boards are pushing. I'm seeing that pressure coming from the board more and more often. To Mike's question about non-conformance, it's lost opportunity. Associations there's more and more competition from for-profits and other associations. They lose money, they lose revenue, they're getting their lunch eaten. That's what I've seen. I think, Tim, you've probably seen that, seen non-conformance as well.
Yeah, I agree, and it's unfortunate right now. We're talking about a study that has some numbers based on a survey. We don't exactly have those numbers, those hard costs that we could say, all right, by you making that decision immediately right now, or making the decision to not make the decision to move forward, this is going to be more expensive in the long run. So we unfortunately don't have those kind of numbers, at least on the wide scale that I know of.
So I'm sorry, were you about to say something, Bill?
Well, no, I was just going to throw out that it was a generational attitude of non-conformance that wound up being my ultimate justification for the digital transformation project that my board disapproved. It was, seeing every single technology need over the course of 20 years as a one-off that had nothing to do with everything else that was in place, that gave us 5 different content management systems for 5 different websites that don't talk to each other, which means, it's why what we have today is an organization with, when I got here, we had 19 staff, and 2 of them were full-time IT professionals, which is insane for an organization as small as we are. But it was necessary. So in the future, if we design it right and we do think of a more conforming attitude or a conforming position around this, then we don't incur this sort of legacy technology debt. And it's really, Mike's comment is really at the center of my whole forward strategy for what we're doing here at ACOM. But, to answer the question, yeah, absolutely. There are executive directors and CEOs out there that don't really understand that this is an investment that pays out over, a generation, not a fiscal year cost center. And components of both. And if you manage it as a fiscal year cost center, then you're going to be as picky about it as you are the toilet paper you put in your laboratories. And this is not how you do technology. I would argue it's not how you do toilet paper either, but that's different.
Well, I know where I want to use toilet paper. I don't know what I was about to say. Okay, so Ray said that he could easily think of 3 people who were in IT who are now CEO or executive directors, and this speaks to kind of what we're seeing in, it's not unusual for people to move from this CTO or CIO IT position into CEO. So one of the questions that I know that I wanted to ask from you today, Bill, is talking about when the CIO becomes the CEO or executive director. How do you implement that change? You know, and then asking what's your relationship with your CIO now?
It's great. I don't have one. So
that's another hat you wear.
Someone set me up. Someone set me up.
I don't know if that was known when this was proposed, but no, I do think though that I've not really been too open about some of the things that happen. You know, my transition into this position has been very interesting. Well, one, I believed I was walking into an organization that maybe needed a little bit of digital attention, and it's far more severe, the amount of change that needs to happen here, I think, before you move ahead. And so as part of that transition, 50% of my IT staff, so one person, 50% sounds more dramatic, decided to leave before I even started. And I've decided to not fill the position because I think I could get more out of the dollars than a full-time staff person. But that again, you know, we're a smaller organization now. We're 17 full-time staff. That's appropriate for us. But I think I would go back to what I said earlier in terms of how a CEO should view the IT function, the digital function, so the relationship with a CIO or a CTO would really be, you know, dependent on your ability to recruit and retain somebody that you felt comfortable to speak to that portion of the strategic investment the organization makes every year. And if you could find that, that's essential. From a CEO's perspective, the most important thing in somebody who's running that part of the business is that they can be a champion for everything that part of the organization can do and contribute to mission, how it adds to value, and understanding, you know, that sometimes you might need to push back on that person. You know, talking about the different positional perspectives that these executives have in an organization. And CEOs are ultimately responsible for the execution of the strategy set forth by a board and the distribution of the dollars that are invested in executing the strategy. The CIO is one of several executives that is vying for those dollars. And so the CIO and the CEO need to have that same sort of symbiotic relationship where they challenge and push but trust each other and can work with each other. I think the CIO needs to absolutely be a party to strategic conversations at the board level, so that they are. When you are in the boardroom, you have a completely different sense of the competing priorities and, you know, how members actually view and interact with the organization. And you don't get that at an executive team. You don't get that at a senior staff meeting. You don't come close. You really need to have vested volunteers in the room to understand how deep some of the concerns for things that are totally outside of your area of the schoolyard can run within some volunteers, and why certain things can be difficult. It can also give you the ability to empower your CEO in terms that you know now what they deal with. You see the people that they interact with. You see how those relationships are. So, you know, I think from my perspective, and I hope that we do this, I want my organization to grow to the point that I feel like I do need a full-time IT person to handle that side of the job. I'm going to be looking for somebody who I know is not going to carry the entire organization on their shoulders. They're going to look outside into the broader community, and they're going to have a community of people that is backing them. But they're also going to be able to sit in my boardroom and have an adult conversation with board members and understand what's important from those conversations. Because if you put too much on the CEO to be the fulcrum of that relationship, they're going to fail. CEOs don't have time to manage the feelings or knowledge of anybody that's on it. And they shouldn't.
Yeah. So you know, when I think about the fact that this study shows that so many people feel like they're not where they need to be when it comes to technology for associations, and at the same time, we have such rapid transformation happening in every facet of the way that we conduct ourselves, live our lives, drive our cars or not drive our cars. In every facet, in every industry, change is happening. And somehow the CIO, CTO is supposed to stay on top of it. Any IT professional is supposed to somehow be on top of technology. If they're expected to, hold on to their leadership role, people look to them to know. And so what do you think are the most important things, like resources, skills, maybe technologies to pay attention to so that you stay on top of your game? Because I can imagine that, if I'm a CEO and I'm looking for somebody who is at the top of their game, who's knowledgeable, I mean, what am I going to be looking for? What do you guys look for in, people, colleagues who are, respected and doing what they need to do in order to advance innovation in their associations? It's a tough question. You go. Anybody who wants to start attacking it, go for it.
So there's two things with that. One is a culture of learning, of always adapting.
I mean, anyone.
No, not coming through.
I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you,
So one is a culture of learning, of always trying something new, willing to try different things, bringing new technologies, new things to the table. And then the second is just a culture of having space to do the work and to try things out, of being able to pull a pilot project off and say, let's give this a shot. And that gets to that culture piece that's there. And I know, like in our company, granted we're an agency, we end every staff meeting with a lesson, tip, or trick. And we go around the table. Everyone is expected to bring something new to learn. At least one, we rotate through, but everyone contributes a tip, a trick, something technology to bring to the table. And that's a good way to keep that going. And then you have the industry plug for ASA Tech Conference.
Good plug. Good plug for the Tech Conference. And I agree, Ray. I think, and that's the piece about like what you're looking for in the people. And I'd say on the association side is more of an investment. And I guess one part is the investment Ray talks about. You have to invest in providing the space to allow these projects to take place. You also do need to invest actual dollars into the educational process for your staff. I know that just from our experience, almost 2 years ago, we rolled out with Office 365. It made great business sense to move the Exchange servers and have most of that in the cloud, maintain the Microsoft's people. Everything's great there. Then we roll it out, we do training beforehand, do training during and after. And I tell you what, if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would double down on the training and take more time on things like watching how individuals work from their everyday needs. And just sometimes exploring that can give you more insight on the internal side of making things a little more efficient and proving that those investments the association puts in its technology will pay off and have dividends. Partly going to be a mental lift, people working more efficiently, but also that eases people into being able to be more comfortable with technology by just having placing the time into making sure they know how to use it in a more effective way. Investment is key to first.
And what do you think about that, Bill?
No, I'll reiterate something that Ray said. It's actually one of my mantras that I share with my staff regularly. My personal philosophy is if you're not learning, you're dying. And that's something that I repeat to my team repeatedly. If you're not learning, you're dying. And if you show me that you are at a point where you're no longer willing to learn, that means that from my perspective, you're dead. And I don't have room for dead people on my team. You don't add value anymore at that point. So that's kind of different. So,
Yeah.
That's probably the number one thing. And I think a better way to phrase that, yeah, I look for intellectual curiosity. I look for people who don't assert themselves as knowing everything about everything. It would be expect anybody to do that. But somebody who can demonstrate that they have the intellectual curiosity to do an environment scan of what's going on and repeatedly in an environment year after year, and then go out and investigate these new things that come up that are interesting to see if we might have value, and find small projects that they can be tested and experimented with, and then let the live or die. One of the things that I did when I was the CTO at AOS was we developed an iOS app that was for delivering video content. And that was a pretty big success. We were very happy with it. And then the next year, Apple came along and we said, "Oh, it's just like doing things for iOS." And we said, "Oh, this is fantastic. We have this great video app. You would think this is a slam dunk. We're going to build one out for the Apple TV, and we're going to show it at our annual meeting." And we did. And everybody loved it, but nobody knew what to call an Apple TV. And so, it fell flat on its face because nobody had the device. Kiki, we just lost you.
Yeah, looks like her. Well, I think I still hear you.
Well, you're right. So anyway,
I
I actually hear you all better now. Anne still sees us.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Yes. All right. I'm thinking that it's my connection here, but I can actually see Ray now moving and maybe hear him.
Great.
Maybe. Bueller?
I can. Yes. Okay, good.
So, I guess, really what I would be looking for is that intellectual curiosity, somebody who is willing to know how to identify things that have potential value and then proof them out. Beyond that, it doesn't matter what you can actually do. It's really, what can you bring in the door?
Yeah.
And I think one thing that goes along with that, when we're talking about trying new tools that I've seen, is it's important to have an ability to pace yourself. Becoming innovative, it's not a switch. You don't go, boom, we have 20 new systems and we launch them all and we're innovative. It's a matter of pacing and saying, we're going to do one thing, we're going to learn from that, let's do another, and having that roadmap that you do. I talked to too many organizations that want it all at once. We're going to do an AMS, LMS, CMS, and grassroots project all at the same time. That's how you end up with a hairline like this. Just saying. But I think that's the important thing to think about of how do you become innovative. Just start small and win from that.
Yep.
So we lost Kiki again. And she's back. And Bill, actually, I started to comment earlier. You'd made a point about watching how your staff works.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to go out and watch how your members work. So I keep on coming back to the next generation of association members are going to be mobile first and mobile native members. I watch my teenagers who do all of their homework on their mobile device. That's the way they go. So I think understanding that environment and spending time and watching how your members work becomes key. And that gets back to the point of people, association staff that say that their members aren't tech savvy. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Ray. And tomorrow I'm going to have a dinner with a member of the fire service leadership down here in Cape Town. And every time I get out of town, it's stop off at one of these apartments and actually at this conversation. Like, what is the technology that is in charge? put together a sub-group of members of just the technology people in the fire service because of exactly what you're talking about. Partially, it was totally self what the technology that departments were using, but it was helpful at least in just to align with for our members, get them more information on what they need to accomplish their goals. So it was, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Great. So what's the most interesting thing you guys experimented with so far this year?
Hey, to that point of working exclusively on a device, I have tried working an entire day of doing real work only on my mobile device.
Oh, wow.
Of not,
how'd it go?
Actually, I'm using a lot of stuff in Google Drive at this point that the files just pull up. I have all the Google apps on my phone. So yeah, it was meetings, emails, everything like that. That's been an interesting experiment. And that included writing documents and doing putting together presentations in Google Slides.
So what did you use? Did you use a portable keyboard?
Just
or
on my device.
Just on your device? So like for mine, I have a Bluetooth keyboard that I've used that helps me because I just can't do the thing. You know, like with my thumbs. So like, but I have the Bluetooth keyboard so that if I, just couldn't use my laptop for some reason or whatever, I would be able to take that and it folds up. Like
similarly, I did something this summer. We had my first board meeting while I was at ACOM. What happened during the middle of a vacation that I'd already had planned. So I spent 2 weeks in the United Kingdom. We had an all-day conference call board meeting with, whiteboarding and everything. And I decided before the trip that I was going to do nothing. I was not going to take anything more than an iPad and an iPhone. And so I didn't take any paper. I didn't take any laptop. And I was surprised at how capable I was of just making that happen and making it work. And it was a great experience. Maybe really the need for laptops for most people.
Well, I feel like since we've had so many technical difficulties in this particular episode of Association Chat, that it's not going to mess you guys up too much if I show you just how cumbersome it is to travel with all of my gear now, which instead of downsizing, I am like, this is stupid. Let me show you guys. I'm not stupid like Reggie Henry stupid, but this is my stitch, you guys. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this stuff. Do you see what's going on here?
You're full on production studio there.
What? I know. Yeah, and but you know what? With all of this technology, who's having the most trouble, right? So let's talk about it.
I'm not going to get into Wi-Fi signals when you're at a conference, how reliable or unreliable Wi-Fi.
I moved to my hotspot. I'm like, forget it, and I should have done that before, but whatever. It seemed like it had a stronger signal than what my hotspot would provide, but I was wrong, and the signal was wrong.
It happened.
Yeah. So what I love though, and I hate that I'm just now able to hear all of you, but the thing is that with this study that you guys were reviewing and looking at, with this idea of pushing associations forward, I mean, I tell you what, at AMS Fest, the whole point of having this blockchain conversation is just to get people talking about how they can start looking at applying it to their different industries, why they should be thinking about it. And I haven't had a chance to actually collect the feedback after the interview, after our talk. But I'm curious, I'm curious to see how quickly we're able to, as association professionals or association industry professionals, take new technologies and begin to apply how they're going to impact our people or just the business that we do on a day-to-day basis, And I feel like that's just such a constant challenge for all of us. So Tim, what'd you share? Can you talk to me about this ASA Tech Readiness Assessment?
Yeah, this is something that ASA put together kind of as a follow-up last part study, giving people a chance to fill out the questionnaire and determine where people are, whether they're on the innovative side or because the cost of amount of money, you get a discount if you are a member. So give that a look over. It's a couple $100 here, but I definitely think it is very timely for everybody to at least take a look at how they can go about being be more innovative. I joke because Bill has shared a good story about his old group putting together, having Amazon Echo work for his association. And he got his developers together, just dedicated a block of time, and at the end of it, they could ask Alexa questions, and it would query stuff out of the database. And it's something I'll say relatively simple. Of course, you have to have the resources, the person like Bill in place to say, all right, stop everything else you're doing, dedicate this amount of time to this, because there will be this amount of return. And I can't say that I've done the Alexa piece, but I tell you what, with our we're undergoing a selection of a new database right now, and at the end of the tunnel, there's some variation of that with one of these smartwatches or Google Home or Echo or something like that. But I like being surrounded by people who are, challenging things, and also being able to take those and try to apply them, even if you can't apply them today. I think it does get a little overwhelming as these new technologies come out. We didn't touch blockchain because, like we said, we're still coming around to figuring that out. But when you hear these technologies, you're like, oh, I know at my own association, I start talking about a new thing, I have to think about the pacing, like Ray mentioned earlier, because I see the glazed over eyes and I go, oh no, not again, please don't do it. And I think that's part of the reason not as many associations are out there and innovative. But I think on the technology side, as we roll them out, we need to pace, as Ray said, but also kind of be very human-centric. Think about it as people trying to achieve a shared mission, so you need to take a little care in applying kind of that technology and with as much tenderness as the IT crowd can. So.
Yes. I mean, I think that so on the Alexa point, and I love that because I actually got my developer's account for Alexa and then started working on developing a skill because I'm like, ooh, I want to get in there and play around with it. And, it's so interesting that they actually make it very user friendly to go in there and begin to put that stuff together. But, like Fontiva that sponsors Association Chat, what's fantastic is that at the last ASE annual, visited with them, obviously, and in there they had already developed something where they were able to interact somewhat, ask some very basic questions so that you could ask Alexa, how many people were registered for your conference and that kind of thing, and it would tie out to the AMS, which I thought was an interesting idea, and I think something that we're all hoping for. I'm very interested in the ability to ask the air for information and the air provide me with the answers. So I'm always looking for ways that can become more of a thing. But I love the idea that we can look at some of these new ideas. You don't have to be, I think just understanding the concepts of blockchain is fine to begin with. But then some of these things that are closer, people are in fact asking Alexa more and more questions or more and more devices, not just Alexa, but Google Home, and asking more and more devices for information. So what does that look like? And how does that impact everything from your SEO for your website to the way that you end up investing in ways to communicate with your members? So it's a fascinating time to be involved in, I think, IT or anything to do with technology for organization. Yeah, and Ray says, try asking multiple devices the same question to see how they react. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
we asked both Alexa and Siri the same question, and we'll get 2 different answers.
Mm-hmm.
I think
know.
And the interesting point that comes along with that is if you look back at Mary Meeker's Internet Trends report from last year, the growth of voice search that's on a hockey stick growth curve. It's just going to grow that much more.
It is. And it's overtaking regular search. And so it's a fascinating phenomenon that I think it's fascinating because it actually impacts the work that I do. And I look at it and people are not ready. They're not optimizing for voice at all. I mean, you don't ask the air, you don't ask your devices the same way that you type into Google. So you need to think about the ways that you optimize around that.
Yep.
And Mike says the power of Alexa is only as good as the data it's pulling from. That quality remains a huge problem at many associations and nonprofits. And that's so true. Again, you're not, a lot of people aren't looking at the type of information that's going in there to supply that information back the way that Alexa and Siri are asking for, that Google is asking for it. But you're getting better, guys. Wow.
If we're thinking,
go ahead.
Thinking about natural language interfaces and sort of where we are, I would caution anybody to think of them as sort of the LCARS of Star Trek, where you can ask for the computer to do advanced analytics, and more to think of it as more like HAL 9000, where it can echo current status of agreed upon facts. And as long as you have done the work in your data environment to define what is a fact, so if you've gone through and developed analytics dashboards or KPIs or balanced scorecard, then a natural language engine is fantastic at being able to easily expose those sort of data elements. It's not yet to the point of being able to depend on it. So I think that's a great point about the quality of data. And right now, natural language interfaces belong at the end of the analytics and business intelligence process, not at the beginning.
It's so interesting for me, and then I know that we're out of time, and I cannot believe this. I feel like I barely got a chance to talk to you because of the technical difficulties. But it is such an interesting time because I think that the combination, when you combine what you can do with your conversational analytics and look at voice search and being able to ask the air. I always say ask the air because it just sounds so magical for people, but to ask the air for the answers, combining that with the machine learning so that it answers you differently based on who's asking. Like it's Kiki that's asking, and she always is interested in cooking and the Stooges and all of the stuff. So I'm going to respond in a way that is most likely to be the right answer for her. That's something that is just really, really interesting to me. And I see where Alexa's headed. I was one of the early ones with my Amazon Echo, and it's come a long way. So God, what are some final words, you guys? So where can people find you? Where can people find more information about, I know that we have some links here, but for the people who are listening later on the podcast, where can they go to get more information?
Well, on the technology readiness assessment, you can just go to ASAE's website. That's asaecenter.org. You can just type search in there. And they also, and the report itself is called Tech Success for Association. That's done on the ASAE Foundation label. So you can just Google that, or look it up at ASAE's website. You can find it. Great stuff, and I'd love to see the conversation continue on the Twitters.
Well, it will definitely need to happen because I need to have you guys come back, and we need to have obviously more steady Wi-Fi. So we'll find a time to do that. Maybe we'll have an additional association chat, and I don't know. Maybe if you're at Tech, if you're at ASAE Tech, maybe we could do something live there. But let's talk about that. For you guys who tuned in today, hey, oh my gosh, this is part of the fun of live. Hello, hello. thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you participating in Association Chat and supporting us every week. You can always catch new episodes of the chat every Monday. This next Monday's episode should be interesting. On Association Chat podcast for iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. Yes, you can ask Alexa to play the latest edition of Association Chat podcast, and it will play it for you. It's on iHeartRadio, guys. Okay, so next week's live chat is we're talking to Omer Soker, talking about the future of associations, offering an international perspective. He has a few ideas you should listen to. And until next time, everyone, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.